Welcome to .NET training sessions. In this session, we're going to talk about ASP.NET, Active Server Pages Network Enabled Technology. As a part of this session, we're going to understand about Internet. Basically, we're going to understand what is a network and why do we require a network. Could be LAN, MAN or WAN. We're going to understand the two major actors in a network, a client and a server. We're going to understand the various types of servers like Windows server, web server, database server and application server. What is exactly a script? Client-side script versus server-side script. How did ASP.NET origin? Who are the predators of ASP.NET like CGI, ESAPI, ASP and ASP.NET now? So let us move on to the session. Now let us first understand why do we require a network. Far away LAN, MAN and WAN. Basically we're going to understand why do we require a network. People say we like to share. So let us understand the basic importance of network with an example. Now let us consider, in real world, let us consider a boy and a girl, two living objects. Now they would like to share a feeling. So they are trying to share a feeling. Now to share a feeling, what do we require? We require a medium. So the medium they will be using is a language. And if I would like to list a lot of languages, we could say English globally, Hindi, or so many languages we have to use. So basically, if you see, there are two living objects. They're trying to share a feeling using a medium, language. And they might use various languages. Now, if I would like to map this example towards a technical example, now we can replace boy with a computer 1 and a girl with a computer 2. So there are two computers under network. Now what they would like to share? Definitely not a feeling. Definitely they would like to share a resource. So they are trying to share a resource. So what is a resource type? It could be a hardware like a printer. It could be a software, probably like a database server. Could be Oracle or SQL Server, or maybe a simple file or a text matter, whatever. So basically two computers under network are being placed to share a resource. That is the main agenda. So now to share a resource we need again a medium. So medium is www. So www is a medium through which they would like to interact. They are using a www medium, World Wide Web medium, and instead of languages they'll be using protocols. Like we have various languages in real world, we have various protocols like SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. We have FTP, File Transfer Protocol. We have HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. We have HTTPS, which is a server side certified protocol. So basically two computers under network definitely are being to share a resource irrespective of hardware or a software. And they use a medium by name World Wide Web, and definitely based on the need they'll be using the protocol. Suppose I would like to download a file from a server to a local machine. I'll use a FTP protocol. I would like to exchange mails over a network. I'll use SMTP. Just I would like to browse over communication. Then I use HTTP. If you're working over a secured level, then you need to go for HTTPS. So basically at a high level, very simple, we require network. Could be LAN, MAN or WAN just to share a resource. Could be a hardware or a software. So who are the actors? Who are the actors involved in a network? There are various actors, but the minimum actors required to play would be client and a server. So what is a client and what is a server? Simple. Now client is a machine or a hardware. So it could be any kind of client. That is the reason I am saying client is a hardware or a machine which will place a request for a resource which is placed on a server. That resource could be a simple hardware or a simple software. So very simple, client is always a hardware or a machine that would place a request to a server to give a resource. And the resource is given in the form of a response back to the client. Now the big question is, what is a server? It is a big confusion over the Google. Few people say it's a hardware, few people say it's a software. So let us be clear with that. Remember, server is always a software process. A process is a program under execution. For example, now when you load your laptop, you find a lot of applications sleeping, like Notepad, WordPad, Calculator, MS Office, all are inactive. The moment when I type Notepad and execute, so what is happening? A program which was sleeping, now it becomes active. So a program under execution is referred by a process. So server is also kind of server based software process. Now the question is whether it is a hardware or a software confusion. See, now if for example, I am alone using a machine or a laptop. If I install all the server utilities in my machine, that case I am the producer, I am the consumer. I mean, I am the client, I am the server. So basically, if you are able to install a software process in a machine and you are trying to interact there itself, then it is referred as a software process. But the software process, if it is remotely installed in other machine and you are trying to interact with various local machines, then we generally post it as a hardware. So remember, irrespective of a local hardware or a remote hardware, ultimately server is just a software process running in a memory and which is accessed over n number of clients connected under the same network. That is the most important thing. So now we have understood what is a network, who are the major actors involved in the network, and we have understood what is a client, and we also understood what is a server. Now we need to understand the various servers in the market. See, you could be coming from any background. You could be a ASP.NET developer or a Java developer or a PHP developer, open source. Ultimately, as a web developer, you should understand few of the servers in the market. Like the first one is a Windows server. Now, what is basically a Windows server? Now, Windows server is a network-based operating system. For example, if you take Windows 95, 98, Vista, Windows, we can talk about XP, Windows 10. These are all operating systems, fine. Now the problem is, what is the specialty about Windows 2000 server or something like Windows NT? Now, Windows 2000 server and Windows NT are specialized operating system on network. Now the question is, can't I use Windows 95, can't I use Windows 10 or maybe any other operating system to go for networking? So basically they promise I should use Windows 2000 server or Windows NT server to establish a network over an organization or an enterprise. So why do they recommend that? Now let us understand this situation. At a high level, what is Windows Server? Windows Server is a network-based operating system or a network-enabled operating system. Now, let us say, now we have mobile in the market. We go to a shop and we ask, hey, do you have a mobile? Yes, they give. Hey, do you have a sound recording device? A voice recording device? They say yes. So what is the difference between a voice recording device and a mobile which is having a voice recording option? See, the difference is like, if still I can use a voice recording with a mobile, but due to some disturbances or may not be, the clarity level would be fine. But if I take a voice recording device which is specially designed for that, will help us to record well and a long duration and without any disturbance in recording. So in the same way, every operating system I can use to establish a network over a pair of computers. But What I require is more secure levels, more options to manage my systems perfectly. So Windows Server will help. This operating system will provide a lot of utilities through which I can manage my network over an enterprise. That is the importance of Windows Server. So we have understood what is Windows Server. Windows Server is a simple network enabled operating system which helps an administrator to manage the organization over an enterprise. Now let us understand the second one. What is a web server? Now a web server is again a machine. A web server is again a machine in which HTTP servers are installed. Now these HTTP servers will receive a HTTP client request and serve the purpose. So basically a web server is again a hardware or a machine on which an HTTP server software is installed which will accept HTTP client request and it will serve properly. Now there are major HTTP servers available in the market, but very famous are Microsoft IIS, we have Tomcat server which can be used. Now remember, any developer coming from any respective technologies definitely require a web server to implement a web application. So definitely to create a web application I would require a web server. It comes to the background of the technology on which you are working. So Microsoft people will use Microsoft IIS, Internet Information Services Server, to enable all the web applications developed using ASP.NET. We have understood what is a Windows server, what is a web server. Now what is an app server? Now app server is a broker between the resources and the web application. Now this server will support all the extensions. Suppose now it will decide whether it is coming from a ASP.NET or a Microsoft based application system or a PHP extension system. Now it all depends upon the extensions. So app server will have some extensions which will map to the request given through the background of ASP.NET or JSP or PHP. So basically it will be like a mediator between a resource and a web server to serve the purpose. Now we have also something called database servers. Database servers are basically server based databases which are installed in a network. Let us say now I can give 10 computers to 10 people, but I cannot give 10 licenses to 10 different people just for Oracle. Just they would like to share the data, because everyone may not be interested to implement, they would like to share some data. So basically what happens in a network, on a server we install databases like Oracle server or a SQL server or DB2 server. Now that server databases are shared by all the people who are connected under the network. So we have understood the various types of servers. So as of now we have understood what is a network, who are the actors involved in the network like a client and a server. We have understood various types of servers, and we need to dig more into understanding about few more things for this session. Now we're going to understand now what is a script and what is a client side script and a server side script. See, when we talk about, we started our journey writing programs in C, C++, Java or C#.NET. So a program is a very high level term which can do anything. See, I might write a program to connect to a database, or to find the reverse of a number, or I would like to compare two files, or like to validate a data. I can do anything in a program. But when we talk about, and it needs a compiler to compile the code and everything, it's a dependent code. But where the script is a very independent, lightweight code, which is basically used to validate a data. So basically we write script in web programming to validate a data. Now the question is where we are validating. Are we validating at a client machine or we are validating at a server side? So let us take an example. Now let us say I log into a website yahoo.com. So there are three friends. Let us say friend 1, friend 2 and friend 3. So now all the three people are basically trying to browse yahoo.com on their machine. Let's say one is doing at college, one is browsing at office, and one friend working at home. So now, so let us say the three people are browsing yahoo.com on various machines. Could be a machine or a laptop or a mobile. Now, the first thing what they'll do, they need to sign up. So they will go for a sign up. So while giving sign up, they provide some information like their first name, their middle name, contact number, blah, blah. A big list of data is given. Now we submit the data. Now when submitting, let's assume all the friends have given some wrong data. I mean to say they must have given a 4-digit phone number, or they might have given a wrong data which is not valid to a proper data. So when you submit, it will give an error stating that, hey, the phone number is 4-digit, make it a 9-digit number. Something like this, a simple error would come. Or you must have left the first name or whatever it's a middle name, whatever you missed it, it will give an error. So now the question is where this data is validating. Did it went to yahoo.com or not is a question. So remember, the validation can be done at two levels. One is at a client side, one it is a server side. So the script which is written to validate the data before we submit the data to the server is referred by client side scripting code. Whereas the script or the code which is written to validate the data much after posting data to the server is referred by a server side scripting language. So we are validating the data before submitting. I would like to validate my phone number or anything which is before the submission. So because the data is in the client machine, so they will definitely would like to validate the data much before the submission of data. So that is referred by a client side scripting language. Now if, okay, I registered, the next day I log in. So the username and password I give and I click submit. This time what will happen? The data has to be mapped to the server database and compare and say, hey, this data is available or not available. He's a valid user or not. We need to do some validation, but this validation can't be done at client side. It need to be forcefully done at the server side. So that is a server side scripting language. So very simple. We have a script basically to validate the code before or after the submission of data. The data which is validated or the code which is written to validate the data much before submission of the data is referred by client side scripting. Example are JavaScript, jQuery, and so on, and Microsoft. We can think about VBScript. Now we have server side. Server side script is what? Basically a script or a code which is written in a server side scripting language like ASP, ASP.NET, like JSP, PHP are the examples of languages which will validate the code after posting the data to the server. That is a basic difference between a client side script and a server side scripting language. We need to understand one more point, the difference between website and web application. Now, many people get confused with this term. Now I ask people what is google.com, the people say it's a website. Now the moment when I ask what is a facebook.com, they say web application. They feel it is much heavier. Is the weighter is the reason? No. Remember, a website is a huge or a bigger picture. A website can have 0 web applications or 1 web application, or it can be more than that. The difference between a website and a web application is web application is a secured web part. For example, secured web part means it will ask, if you try to access a web application in a website, it will ask you some credentials. For example, if you log into google.com, it's a website. As of now, it's a website. Under the google.com, if you click Gmail, now this Gmail, when you click, it will ask login and a password. That part is called web application. So the secured web part of a website is referred by a web application. Some applications don't have that feature. It is purely a website. So that is the difference between a website and a web application. So now, as of now, we have understood some basic web terms. So let us understand first of all what is ASP.NET now. So ASP.NET can be defined in many ways. See, ASP.NET is a framework that is given to a developer to design, develop and deploy a web application in simple terms. So like we have learned ADO.NET. ADO.NET is a framework which will provide certain classes and interfaces through which I can create an application that would connect to a data source. In the same way, ASP.NET is a framework which will target a developer to design, develop and deploy a simple web application. Could be static or a dynamic web application. This is one way we can think about. We can also define ASP.NET as what? A server-side scripting language. We already discussed what is server-side scripting. To validate a data, much after posting the data to the server, we write some code. That code can be written in ASP.NET. At a high level, very simple. ASP.NET is a kind of framework or a server-side scripting, or we can also refer by a middleware technology, which will help a programmer to design a simple static or dynamic web application. Now the beauty of the technology is, see the client side, if you take any web application, we have something called a client side code, we have a server side code, we have a data source. So for example, now if I belong to a Microsoft family, so I will be writing client side code in HTML and client side code using JavaScript or any supporting scripting language. Server side I'll be writing in ASP.NET, and obviously I'll be using a database like SQL Server. Now the people coming from Java background, the client side will remain same, HTML, JavaScript. The server side this time will change to a servlet or Java. Data source could be Oracle or something else. Similarly, if I come from a PHP background, HTML, JavaScript will refer to same. They will learn PHP and write the server side script, and they may use MySQL as a database. So all the technologies they fight, but ultimately the greatness is about HTML and JavaScript, because it will get response for any technology. All are depend on HTML client side. And now moving on to Angular, jQuery, a lot of things have client side has taken a lot of picture, because nowadays the market is about SPA, single page applications. Okay, now we have understood what is ASP.NET and the framework about. Now let us understand how did it origin. We are learning ASP.NET now. Like before ASP.NET, what were the other technologies Microsoft started? So we are going to understand the Microsoft journey towards this scripting language. So just let's first list out. As of now, we are using ASP.NET since 2002. Before to that, we are using ASP. Before to that, there was a small level of SAP, and we had CGI. So some years back, when somewhere in early 80s, like Microsoft started a concept called CGI, Common Gateway Interface Programming. Then after that, they released another middleware technology called Internet Service Application Programming Interface. Then came ASP, and presently we are using ASP.NET. So let us understand what is the importance of all these and why the new versions were released in the market by Microsoft. Now let us understand the first concept, CGI. See, today when we talk about a network, it's a very global network. We talk about worldwide area network, LAN network. But in early stages of programming in 80s to 90s, there is nothing like much about internet. It was just a network. So when we talk about the network topologies, we would like to share some data or some machines talking to other machines for the very limited area of programming was there. Initial stage of requirement was, I would like to share some data across the network. That could be a very minimal network. So what is the problem with the CGI? So let us understand with a diagram for CGI. Now let us take an example of a college. Now I am writing a college. So let us say now a new college started. Now the college principal, so we have various departments like CSC, like various departments, you have CSC, IT, a lot of students are coming into the college. Now one fine day, being new to college, the principal says, okay, everyone please welcome to a conference hall. Now we have one conference hall. Now principal will come and principal says, students of CSE, please occupy. Students of IT, occupy. So CSE is over here. Let us say IT department is over here. Now all the students are occupied in the conference hall. Now he welcomes all the faculties of computer science, all the faculties of IT. Now it's fine. In one conference hall, CSE people, IT people, EC people, different branch of people, along with their faculties, all the resources are equipped. Now, principal says, hey, start teaching. Is it a possible situation? Now, scenario 1, it is possible if every department is having 2 to 3 students. For example, it's like more or less like a tuition taken care. It is possible. If the strength is less, still it is possible. So what happened? That is the problem with CGI. In the CGI, what happened? In a particular area, now CGI will have what? One particular boundary. Now in the boundary of network, application 1, let's say this application 1 and this is application 2. So let's say first one is like Gmail and second one is like say Facebook. So what is happening in this small boundary of network? Applications, lot of customers coming into this boundary. Application 2, lot of customers keep on coming into the boundary. Let's say what happens now, outside the class some students are there. Slowly one student will come. He will occupy into CSC. If it is CSC, he goes to IT room if it is IT. So if the traffic is less, like the strength of the students are less, then it is manageable. The moment more number of people entering into the picture, there will be an issue. So what is the situation here? There are a lot of students coming into the conference hall. They might belong to different departments. So departments will come and they say that, hey, the first department sit over here, second department sit over there. So they keep on occupying. They are managing. The teacher are able to teach the classes. But it is okay if we are having few students. That is increasing, then this application will crash. The same problem we had with CGI. In the common gateway interface program, there was a domain set. In the domain, lot of application, only one single domain was there. In one single domain, lot of application used to share the memory. So application 1, application 2, and let's say 10 applications are coming, and over a time frame when the bandwidth is going out, the application crashes. That was the problem of CGI. So in the CGI programming, early network programming, they used to have one domain. In that one domain, a lot of applications were used to accommodate. For some time it was okay, but when the traffic increases, the application would crash. So to overcome this problem of CGI, they introduced ASP extension. So how to solve that problem? Then the principal said that, okay, this is not the right choice. So let us create separate rooms for teaching. So there will be a separate CSC room, there will be a separate IT room, and this way it could be a better thing. So we have a school, there is a big domain of a college. In that we have separate classes for IT, separate classes for IT. So what will happen now, it's become easy to manage the thing. So instead of having single domains, they have individual application domains created and they used to manage it properly. So that was ASP. But the problem with ASP was, it was written in a language VC++, which is very complex to understand. So to overcome this all problem, they introduced ASP, Active Server Pages, in the same model of ASP, written in a very simple manner. So that was ASP. So ASP stands for active server pages. Now active server pages, one second. So we were talking about active server pages. So active server pages, when we talk about the entire code. So what is the concept of a web application? We need to write a client-side code, that is in terms of HTML, a scripting code of client-side using JavaScript, and we talk about a database middle layer code, or we can talk about the server-side code, that is ASP, and we need to write some commands for designing. So entire things, the HTML, JavaScript, database, everything was written in only one single page. So my ASP file is having client-side code, server-side code, a database level code, and some Flash level code or any graphic code. So the problem with ASP was, now a client will send this ASP page to the server. Now the server has to take a call to segregate the client-side code, server-side code, a database code, or various levels of code. So it would take a response time more or rendering more to get the output. So the advantage of ASP was different applications have different domains and they can manage the traffic. I mean, scalability was fine, but the problem with ASP was it was success in the market, but the problem with ASP was when a client submits the ASP page to the server would take certain time to separate the client-side code, a database level code, or a script level code needs to be taken care. So it take a lot of time to handle this situation. That was the first drawback. So segregation of layers was very complex. I mean, it's not complex, I would say. It would take more time to, response time was taken more. And the second thing was, ASP was not platform independent. It is not platform independent. That is the second major reason of ASP.NET. Now, ASP.NET took over ASP for the major reason was, now in ASP.NET we separate the client-side code, server-side code, and database level code. So clean separation of concern was taken care in ASP.NET. That was the first biggest advantage over ASP, which made lightweight response. Second thing, ASP.NET was initially started with a platform independent concept, because .NET is a platform independent concept that was not possible in ASP. This was the major two reasons why ASP.NET came into picture. Okay, so as of now, over 20 years, ASP.NET is one of the leading middleware technology which will help developers to develop a scalable dynamic web application. So in this session, we just understood basically what is a network, what are the actors involved in the network like a client and a server. We understood what is a client, we defined a server, and we also mentioned all the various web servers that we require to implement a web application. Then moving on, we've understood what is a client-side script, what is a server-side script. We've understood the various predators of ASP.NET like CGI, SAPI, Internet Server Application Programming Interface, ASP, and ASP.NET. So in simple terms, ASP.NET is a framework or a platform or a middleware technology or a server-side scripting language that helps a programmer to develop, design, and deploy a web application of his choice. Could be a static or a dynamic web application. Hope you understood the situation.